I'm reading from the Christian Standard Bible, so your versions may have a slightly different translation. I am the Good Shepherd. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he is not the shepherd and doesn't own the sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and scatters them. This happens because he is a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. I am the Good Shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father. I lay down my life for the sheep, but I have other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock, one shepherd. This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. So, the Good Shepherd. I am the Good Shepherd. I mentioned that we could spend weeks and weeks, if not months and years, just on this. So are you aware that the Good Shepherd, there are references to the Good Shepherd over 100 times, separate occasions in the Bible? And there are over 500 references to sheep. So with those sort of numbers and the amount of times that is referring to the Good Shepherd and the sheep, when Jesus says he is the Good Shepherd, I think we need to know what he's talking about, don't we? The word sheep is used in the Bible more than twice as many times as the word to pray. So this clearly means something. We need to fully understand what this means. And in the context and culture of biblical times, of the Old Testament and the New, sheep and flocks of sheep and shepherds were part of the daily lives of the people there. And we might think, okay, I know what a shepherd is. He looks after the sheep and that's it. But there is so much more to this. If Jesus had come 2,000 years later, then he might have taken a lowly, difficult job that dealt with people on a daily basis and influenced and met people and spoke into their lives. And then it would be easy for us to understand. If he'd said, I am the secretary, then we would know what that meant. But 2,000 years ago, saying that he was a secretary would have meant nothing to these people. They didn't have them. Equally, if I am the taxi driver, that would have meant nothing 2,000 years ago. Or the shop assistant. Now, if I say all of those things, you know exactly what that means. You know the implications, you know who they deal with, you know their interaction with people, you know the responsibilities that they would all have. You know all of that. But he says, I am the Good Shepherd, and the people, you, are my flock. So we really need to understand a little bit more fully when it's mentioned so many times in the Bible, God's word, sheep and shepherds. What does it actually mean in context? Now, Estelle talked last week on one aspect of the shepherd, and the shepherd is the gate. And so the sheep can only come into well-being and peace with the security that the gate has. You can only come into God's flock via the gate. And so she gave us that one aspect of that, which was great. So why does he refer to us, to his people, as sheep? Is it because we're all soft and sweet and cuddly and cute? I'm looking at you when I say that, not me. Well, no. So we need to really think about the characteristics of sheep. Why does he refer to sheep so many times, more times than he uses the word prey? We need to understand a little bit about sheep. We all think, oh, okay, I know what sheep are. Okay, let's have a look. There's the sheep pen, and you can see the shepherd is the gate. So sheep whether it be 2, 3, 4,000 years ago or now, will easily follow what's in front of them. Will easily follow what's in front of them. They don't think too much about life in general or the bigger picture. They just follow what's in front of them. A few years ago, there was a news article in Turkey that in eastern Turkey, 1,500 sheep walked over a cliff and fell into a ravine. It was on the news. How could that happen? Because they weren't looking where they were going, and a few just bumped a few others, and they just went over, and everybody followed. The first 400 sheep fell into that ravine and died. The remaining 1,100 fell into the ravine and lived because they had a soft landing. I kid you not. Now, it's not just a case of 5 or 6 sheep just falling over and the next 5 or 6 going. 1,500 sheep went over the ravine and fell in. All right? He's saying we are like sheep. On another occasion, there's something else I was told, that if you had all of you sheep in here, and I were to place a rope, maybe a foot off the ground, in the doorway, and then ushered you out, the first few would jump over the rope and carry on. If I were to then undo the rope whilst the first few were jumping, every other one of you would also jump over the rope, even though the rope's not there. This is how easy sheep follow what's gone on before them. They will easily follow what's in front of them. They don't think about the bigger picture. They don't really have a great sense of direction. They don't at all. Are we the same? How easily are we influenced by things that go on in the world? If you think to going to school and somebody decided to try having a cigarette, how many other kids flocked to, I'll try that. No thought about whether it's good for them, how much it's going to cost, impact, the smell, all of that, health reason. No. We do, don't we? And that's one example. And there are many others that lead on to addictions, lead on to whatever. How, or even if it's just, I bought this last week, I'll have to get one of those. How many times? Sheep will so easily follow what's in front of them, even if everything's going off the edge of a cliff. Sheep are also defenseless. What can a sheep use to fight off an enemy? It doesn't run particularly fast, but it can run. It could possibly kick, but you never hear of a farmer going to hospital because a sheep has kicked him, do you? They can't really kick. And their bite, same issue. It's not really there. They're defenseless. They can't look after themselves. In the same way, if we're walking down the street and somebody attacks, it is not easy for us to defend ourselves. Some of us would struggle to run away. Defenseless. Sheep are defenseless. They're also not good swimmers. Sheep are not good swimmers. Now, if you've just taken off their fleece, if you've taken off their coat, then they can swim. They can swim. But if they've got wool, if they're carrying wool around with them, that will soak up, pull in the water, and they get very heavy, and they really struggle with swimming. And so they are very, very nervous and skittish around fast-flowing water. They need calmer water to drink, okay? They're not good swimmers. Have any of you heard the term cast down before? When it refers to sheep. So if a sheep falls over or is knocked over and just happens to land on its back and is still, they can't get up. They cannot get up. And so they might bleat a little bit and just wave their legs just for a little while, but not long. Dead. Yeah. That's exactly what I was going to say. So if you've got a sheep on its back, just like Georgie said, if you've got a sheep and it's on its back, it's somehow been knocked over or it's tripped over and it's on its back, it will bleat a little bit, it'll wave its legs for a few moments, and then it'll just sit there. And then after an hour or so, well, in fact, earlier, the blood will come out of its legs, And after about an hour, its stomach then hardens, and they effectively suffocate with the weight of their own body. And they die if they're not rescued. The other thing, of course, is if they do trip over and fall over like that before somebody can get to them, the rest of the flock's probably wandered off. Hopefully not over a cliff, but it will have wandered off. And so that one sheep that's fallen over is vulnerable. And so what that sheep would then need is for somebody to come up, gently massage its legs, gently roll it over, gently keep it and hold it until it's got its equilibrium back, so it no longer feels dizzy and woozy, and then gently led again back to the flock. And that's what they say by cast down. Why are we like that? How are we like that? What happens if we hit rock bottom? If we are caught and we're wandering and following somebody else, and we come into addiction, or complete debt and we have nothing, and we're flat on our backs, we also can't get ourselves up, can we? There are many occasions where we can think that actually we are struggling to the point where we just cannot get ourselves up. We also feel cast down. Sheep are emotional. They are relational and very emotional, very skittish, very easily frightened, very easily scared. But they create bonds very quickly with each other, with the sheep, with their flock, but also with people, with the shepherds. And they will hear the voice. I loved it when Teresa mentioned this morning, hearing God's voice singing over us. That's what shepherds would do. And they would listen to a person's voice, and they would develop that relationship with them. That's what sheep do. They are very relational, very emotional. Are you? A little bit. I think so. We are born to be in relationship, aren't we? We are created to be in relationship. Sounds like we're sheep. Sheep are also not very strong. They don't carry burdens. What did we say this morning about carrying a burden? We struggle with it. So do they. They don't carry burdens. They're not particularly strong. They're also not discerning. In the same way that they can't work out direction, they may well go over a cliff. They're not discerning. If they're in a field and there is a muddy puddle in front of them and they want to drink, they'll drink. They would not think, oh, I'll look up and 5 yards further, there's clean water. They wouldn't go to it. They'd stick with the muddy puddle. In the same way that they would eat weeds and bad food, bad pasture, even though 20 yards away there might be good pasture. Right? They are not discerning. They don't think about the bigger picture about what's good for them. What about you? How often are we caught in something that just catches our eye at this moment in time and we just miss the bigger picture? They cannot care for themselves. If a sheep gets hurt, scratched or whatever, it can't lick itself clean like a cat might. It can't look after itself in that way. All right? It's just going to carry on trying to do what it does until it falls over or it's attacked or it gets left behind. It can't care for itself. A sheep is also deemed to be innocent. A sheep has no malice in it. It's a soft, gentle character. And it's considered to be pure for that reason. It's gentle. God considers them to be pure as well. Which animal was used for all the sacrifices in the Old Testament? It was sheep. They were considered because there's no malice in them. And also valuable. Going back to all these stories that we read in here, 2,000-3,000 years ago, if you had a flock of sheep, you were a rich man. They were valuable. Even though they were innocent and couldn't do very much themselves, they were considered very valuable because they provided food, they provided clothing, they provided milk. They were the animal that was acceptable for sacrifice. They were very valuable. And if you looked after them and kept them safe and well, they would multiply and your riches would get bigger. Yeah? They were considered valuable. We are considered by God to be valuable. Every one of you. Are we like sheep? All of those? Right. So, if we are like sheep, then we've got to think about the fact that sheep, we need food, we need water, we need shelter, and we also need protection from attack, but also protection from ourselves, just in case there's a ravine over the hill. Or we need to get to clean water or food. We need protection from ourselves sometimes. And that's where the shepherd comes in, because we need to be led. So I'm going to show you an advert now. So put yourselves back 2,000 years, okay? And I'm going to give you a job advert. And I want to see if you want to answer this. So shepherd, personal qualities required. You need to be a leader, because you've got to lead the sheep. You would need to be physically fit and robust. You would need to be a problem solver, because who knows what you'll meet out there. You need to be resourceful. You need to be able to work out where the good pastures are and where the water is. You need to be able to work independently and have good communication skills. You've got to be able to speak sheep. You will need to talk to your sheep, because the sheep will recognize your voice. You will need to speak to the sheep. You've got to like working outdoors, of course, and you would have to be willing to work with animals. Standard sort of job offer. And there are some great advantages to being a shepherd. Some great advantages. There's a long contract on offer, right? Your job security is pretty good. You've got regular hours. Well, we'll come to that. Frequent travel opportunities. And there's much on-the-job training as well. You can just start and you'll learn lots of other things that will come through. First aid, self-defense, navigation, foraging, all of that. You won't need to have gym membership. Okay? If you're a shepherd, I guarantee you, you won't need gym membership. Health and safety equipment will be provided, and you will have much opportunity to build relationships. Okay? So they're the advantages. I'm now going to show you the disadvantages. Exactly the same. Because that long contract could be years, because you're looking after the flock, and that flock's got to grow. Jacob his first contract was a 7-year contract. And then he was given the wrong sister to marry. And so he had another 7-year contract, and then he worked after that as well to gain freedom effectively. So you're going to get a long contract if you're a shepherd, so that's a disadvantage. It could be too long, longer than you'd planned for. Your regular hours are going to be very regular, 24 hours a day, every day. Your regular hours. Frequent travel opportunities, you can travel every day. You're not going to have a Land Rover. You're not going to have a quad bike. You're not going to sit in your farmhouse and direct somebody else to go. You're going to be doing the travel, because you're going to have to take them. Much on-the-job training. First aid, when that sheep is hurt, you are the one that's going to have to go and bind them to clean the wound, or bind them, and if it's broken leg or whatever it is, you're the one that's going to have to go and administer that first aid, and if necessary, pick the sheep up and carry it. Self-defense. We know in the Bible that there will be wolves coming to attack the sheep. There will be lions coming to attack the sheep, us. All right? And we need someone to protect us in that self-defense aspect. Navigation. Well, you're the one that's going to have to work out where the green pastures are, where the sheep can be fed, where they're going to be watered, and you have to keep moving them around. So you're going to be learning navigation on the job. And foraging, of course, because you're going to be out there all the time. You're going to need something to eat yourself. You will not need gym membership, because you're going to be physically active 24 hours a day. The health and safety equipment provided will be a rod and a staff. And that rod is like a big club. So shepherds would have a big club. Why? To protect them and the sheep from all the attackers. So there's your rod that you will need to have with you. That's your health and safety equipment. Save the sheep. But you've also got the staff, which will guide and nurture. And you'll often, I'm sure you're aware of a shepherd's crook, which have a hook on it. And so they will guide and help and rescue the sheep from time to time. Just guide them and just gently nurture them and steer them. Opportunity to build relationships with lots of sheep. Because the shepherd needs to know his sheep. He needs to know who is going to be very boisterous and wants to go and run over and jump off cliffs, or will just run off. He needs to know which ones are actually very emotional and skittish and afraid of people coming by or animals, or who is so afraid of water that it's very difficult to get them to water to drink because they're a terrible swimmer. He needs to know the sheep. He needs to have those relationships. He needs to know his flock inside out, and he needs to be able to communicate to them. You've got to build that relationship as a shepherd. And the other disadvantage, which is not on the advantage side, of course, is it's going to be smelly, it's going to be damp, it's going to be cold, it's going to be lonely, and it's going to be dangerous. So, how many of you want to be shepherds? Yeah. Interesting, isn't it? So a shepherd must lead. He must provide food and water. He must protect the sheep against outsiders, against attack, and also from themselves. And also keep the sheep together, because they are prone to wandering off as individuals. And if they wander off, they're lost. Interestingly, in Acts 20, it talks about elders of churches having those same responsibilities to provide, to nourish, to protect. When we don't think about it much here, but in the wider world where Christian churches are being attacked, it's often the church leader, it's the elder who is attacked and sometimes taken away, sometimes killed. Right? So it's interesting that this aspect of it is also there, for the under-shepherd has the same responsibility, and that's in Acts 20. But what we can gather from the previous slide and this one, thinking about sheep and about the shepherd, is the sheep who listen to the shepherd's voice, the sheep who have that strong relationship with the shepherd and are obedient, they follow where the shepherd takes them and how the shepherd guides them, they are always safe, and they always have everything they need. Always. If the sheep hears the shepherd's voice and listens to the shepherd's voice and is obedient, that sheep will always be safe and always have everything it needs. Okay, so we've got an understanding of sheep and shepherds now, but what did Jesus say? Jesus said, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. The hired hand, since he is not the shepherd and doesn't own the sheep, leaves them and runs away when he sees a wolf coming. The wolf then snatches and gathers them. This happens because he is a hired hand and doesn't care about the sheep. The hired hand, who occasionally comes in and chats to the sheep, is there for personal gain. He's not the shepherd who loves and nurtures and cares for properly. He's the one who comes in, might do a little bit of that now and again, but he is there for personal gain. He is there to be paid, and when things get difficult, he'll run away. How many times do we wander off on our own and then we hear another voice that says, oh, why don't you come and buy this? Oh, you can't afford it. Well, here's another credit card. Why don't you just live on that credit card? You'll be fine. And you get to the end of that credit card, and suddenly when you can't pay anything, can't do anything, that hired hand who sold it you, where's he? He's gone. And you're struggling. Who is it going to be? Is it going to be the one who you thought was your friend who said, oh, why don't you just invest some money here? And actually it'll be fine, and that's great. And we listen to that voice, and we go with that voice, and we follow it. But what happens if that everything goes pear-shaped? What happens if that drops into a ravine? Where's the hired hand? Where is that friend who you thought was a friend, who's actually only talking to you or speaking to you for personal gain? Now, you could have somebody who's speaking to you, somebody who's influencing your life, your thoughts. It could be political. It could be a politician who's got a lovely way of speaking to you and bringing people in. But is he truly speaking good things into your life? Or is it somebody who's speaking into your lifestyle? Is it somebody who's, oh, right, come down the pub every Friday night. Oh, by the way, try this. This is great. Which one of those is your friend? Which one of those voices are you going to listen to? Or is it investment? Whose voice are you listening to? Whose voice are you listening to? He carries on. Jesus says again, I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me. Just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, I lay down my life for the sheep. But I have other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. I must bring them also, and they will listen to my voice. Then there will be one flock, one shepherd. Jesus says he is the good shepherd. He is the voice that you need to listen to. Why is he a good shepherd? Because he knows his own. He knows you. He knows every one of you. He knows you. And he speaks to you. We have the Word of God. He speaks to us. And he also says that those who he's in relationship with know him as well. Do you listen to him as he listens and speaks to us? He knows his own, and his own know him. Just as I know the Father, and the Father knows me. That is the intimacy and how well he knows each of us. That is how well he wants to develop that relationship. And he lays his life down for the sheep. He does everything for you. He blesses you abundantly with so many things. He will do everything for you. He lays his life down for his sheep. But he also has other sheep that are not from this sheep pen. And just like we discussed earlier, he will put the 99, if he's got the 99 in his sheep pen and they are safe and secure, but there's one that's wandering off towards a ravine, or dirty water, or there is bad pasture, or there are wolves circling, he will go and search for that one. And that one could be you. It might be that you've wandered away. We talked earlier, in fact, I prayed about the burden that we have of those that have walked away at different times. He wants to bring that one back each time. He wants to bring them back into the safety and the security and the joy and the calm of the sheep pen. And he has other sheep that are not from this sheep pen, not only those that have walked away and strayed, but those that don't yet know his voice. He will go speak to them. He wants to speak to them, whether it be through us, through these windows and doors being opened, through us going round. He wants all those that don't yet know him to come to know him. I must bring them also, he says, and they will listen to my voice. His truth is what will affect the sheep. Then there will be one flock, one shepherd. There is only one good shepherd. All these other voices that are leading us here, there, and everywhere are not his voice. Whose voice are you listening to? Whose voice are you listening to? This is why the Father loves me, because I lay down my life so that I may take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down on my own. I have the right to lay it down, and I have the right to take it up again. I have received this command from my Father. He lays his life down so that he may take it up again. He loves his flock so much, all of them, that he lays his life down. He gave his life for his sheep, so his sheep can be drawn back in. And that all those mistakes that they've made can be washed away. He lays his life down. And then he also took it up again. Not only did he wipe away all those mistakes that we made and all those difficulties, which in itself is incredible, he also rose again so that he can give his sheep new life. And he says, in this version, I have the right to lay it down. Some translations will say, I have the authority. He is God. He is the God. He gave his life for his sheep, for us, because we couldn't do it ourselves. We read through the characteristics of how weak and feeble and directionless that we can be. He gave his life for us and rose again so that we will have life in him. Whose voice are you going to listen to? Who else? Which other shepherd out there, which one of those other people that's speaking into your lives can give you eternal salvation? He carries on as we go further into John, just a few verses further, and 27 to 30. He says, my sheep hear my voice. I know them, and they follow me. I give them eternal life, and they will never perish. No one will snatch them out of my hand. My Father who has given them to me is greater than all. No one is able to snatch them out of the Father's hand. I and the Father are one. He and the Father are one. God is your good shepherd. It couldn't be any clearer, though, could it? It couldn't be any clearer. Whose voice are you going to listen to? Are you going to listen to the guy in the pub on a Friday night who says, oh, do you want a quick fix? Do you want a quick high? It won't cost you much this time. But next week, okay, we'll do it again. It'll be great, won't it? It'll be great. And we just follow on as sheep. So many do, don't they? That's just one bad example. But addiction, where does that addiction come from? When we know that there are people who struggle with addiction, whether it be alcohol or drugs or shopping, or addicted to getting more power, or addicted to getting more money, or having the shiniest car or the biggest house. That addiction that's driving, which voice is that that's pulling you there? That's the hired hand who is only in that for his own gain and his own money. And he's drawing you down there. And he doesn't care if you can't swim very well with life that actually comes all the way around it. He doesn't care if you fall on your back and you're cast down and you can't actually get yourself up out of all of that, because he'll wander off at that point. Where do you think the term, he fleeced you, came from? He took everything that you as a sheep could offer. He took everything from you and left you on your back, unable to move, no way out. That's the hired hand. Or are you going to listen to the good shepherd who only wants good things for you, who only offers you good things? He offers you protection, he offers you food, he offers you sustenance, water. King David was a shepherd. He was the youngest of 8, and so he got the smelly, dirty, tiresome job of being the shepherd for the family's flock. David knew what it was to be a shepherd, and we know through the writings in here that he had to fight lions and wolves and bears to protect his flock. He understood what it was to be a shepherd. And so he was also a musician and a singer and a writer of songs. Now, David followed the Good Shepherd's voice. He listened to God's voice. He made mistakes. He tripped, stumbled, made some big mistakes. But he tried to follow God's voice all the days of his life, and he was given forgiveness and eternal life. Let's read Psalm 23. David wrote this, and I think this is just such a wonderful song, psalm, something to think about. The Lord is my shepherd. I have what I need. I'm listening to God's voice. I'm listening to the Lord. He is my shepherd. He's the one who guides me. He's the one who gives me the best advice. He's the one who leads me. And in him, I have what I need. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside quiet waters. One thing I didn't mention earlier is that sheep, if they're on their feet and they feel nervous, they will keep going, they'll keep eating, but they can't actually digest anything until they stop and lie down. And they won't lie down if they feel nervous. And what he's saying is, he lets me lie down in green pastures. Some translations will say, he makes me lie down in green pastures. Our good shepherd knows when you need to calm down and rest. But he will also give you that calm situation so that you can rest. The sheep needs the calm to be able to digest its food. In green pastures, he's giving good food to the sheep. And he leads me beside quiet waters, not something that's rushing that I might fall in and struggle with. He's giving me calm, clear waters. He renews my life or refreshes my soul, is some translations as well. He leads me along the right paths for his name's sake. What he gives me is good for my heart, for my well-being. Everything I need that he gives me is good. And he leads me along the right paths. He will guide me with his staff along the right paths. If I'm hearing a voice that's taking me into a pub on a Friday night again, and it's a difficult pub and there are lots of problems there, he will guide me along the right path. For his name's sake. Why for his name's sake? Because we are his flock. We are his flock. And he loves us for his name's sake. Even when I go through the darkest valley, I fear no danger, for you are with me, your rod and your staff, they comfort me. We all have dark valleys to go through at different times, don't we? Where we don't know what decision to make, or there's a health issue, or there's a relationship issue, or there's a finance issue. We all have those dark valleys that we've got to get through. And even when we go through there, as a shepherd, he cannot stand at one side and point and say, go that way and go this way. A shepherd has to lead. He has to be with you, and he will take you through. He is a shepherd that will take us through that darkest valley. And he says, I fear no danger, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. Your rod to ward off all predators, all dangers. Your rod to protect me, and your staff just to guide me when I need it. They comfort me. How many of us are pleased when actually somebody tells us off for something, but it's helped us? It has saved the situation that we're in. If you're a young child and you're running across the road, would you be grateful if your father, your shepherd, the one that you listen to, started shouting at you and grabbed you? Would you be grateful? It's the same thing. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. So not only are you giving me all of that, you're preparing a table. You are lavishing all these wonderful things on me. He knows you individually. He treasures you individually. And he will give you a table upon which he will pile all these things in the presence of your enemies. When all those are trying to pull you away and give you this and give you that and tease you this and get you away from his voice, he will speak to you, keep you safe, and provide you with everything in their face. And you anoint my head with oil. In other words, you are made separate for him. He values you. You are made separate for him. And my cup overflows. He gives me so much. Not only what I need, but all the other things. Only goodness and faithful love will pursue me all the days of my life. If we hear his voice and listen to his voice and are obedient to his voice, we will only know love and security all the days of our life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord as long as I live. Some translations say forever. Is that not a good place to be? Whose voice are you going to listen to?